So basically today I'm going to be showing you guys how I edit my photos in Lightroom. Everybody always seems to ask me, how do you get your photos like that? So today I will be showing you guys how I edit my photos. Stay tuned. Alright, so now that we over here in Lightroom, I'm going to go ahead and get one of the pictures that one of my models wants me to edit. Let's see. Let's do this one. Yeah, okay. So just off the rip, as you can see, the highlights are blown out. It's a pretty bright background, so I had to expose for the lighting in the back and compensate with the flash to brighten her up so that the light in the back can kind of be brought back, so it's not like too blown out. You can still get some of the details back with that. So the first thing that I always do is I grab the little dropper tool for the white balance, and then I find me a neutral area. I guess that's cool right there. Hold on. Alright, that's cool. I can do that. So then off the rip, that just fixed the skin tones, the color tones, everything in the picture pretty much is balanced perfectly, if not perfect, close to it. So then I want to bring down my highlights. Okay, matter of fact, let me bring down the whites all the way down. Then I want to bring them highlights back. As you can see, it's a little bit of clipping, but that's okay because it's not major details that's clipping. Put it right here. I want to bring this up, which is the exposure. Put up the exposure a little bit. Shadows, I don't really got to touch them too much, but I will, just to bring a little bit of detail to the darks, even though it might not be necessary. I'm gonna bring the blacks down to give it a little bit of that contrast. And this right here is kind of vital to whenever you're doing any type of editing to any picture. You want to make sure you get the exposure down. That's like the most important thing, because if you don't get your exposure down, you'll run into problems where you'll have either your darks are too black, or you'll have your skies, your whites, you'll have all that stuff blown out, and it just throw the entire picture off. Even if I take the clipping out, you can still see like the whites aren't too overblown. It's just minor areas. So I think that I'm good with that. So then this is just all just to my liking. I'm gonna just add a little bit of contrast because I like to have contrast in my pictures. Some people don't like too much contrast. I'm one of those people, but I do kind of tread the line sometimes. That's just me. I'm a risk taker. My texture, I never put my texture past like 10. I usually stay between like the 5 to 7, 5 to 8 range. And what that does is kind of like, I'll show you right now. Like if I bring it all the way up, you can see it kind of like brings the detail, add like a little HDR effect to the picture. I don't really like a lot of that because I'm gonna add clarity. Some of the dehaze, I might add a little bit of dehaze, and it'll kind of compensate for that stuff. So let's do it. I always put my clarity at 15. I feel like that's kind of like a sweet spot for how I shoot on camera. I always get the focus for the most part pretty much spot on, so I'm gonna put the clarity at 15 just to give it some detail. Dehaze, I don't need to touch that on this particular picture. Vibrance, I just bumped that just a little bit to just add a little bit of that glow to the skin tone. Gotta love the melanin. Oh, another thing too, I always crop my photos. Instagram typically uses a 8.5 to 11. That's kind of like a perfect size. Not a perfect size, but it's a portrait size that will fit on Instagram. But I like to have the long photos so that it kind of takes up majority of the space, or as much space as possible, so that people who are scrolling, they will kind of stay on your page or your picture, your post, whatever it is. They'll stay on it just a little bit longer than they would for the 8.5 by 11. So I always put mine at 4 by 5. That's always what's worked for me. Then I want to kind of line her up with the rule of thirds. A lot of people don't really know how important the rule of thirds is. I'm one of those people that embrace it. I love it. I always try to get it at the rule of thirds, unless I necessarily just have to just skip the rule, like how I might have to do right here. So I'm gonna put it just a little bit above her eye level, and that works for me. You know, I think that composition is pretty solid, if you ask me. Then I'm gonna play with the curves. I always go to the curves and kind of bring this down, see how it comes out, and look at it. Make sure it's not too contrasty. Make sure that the darks are not too dark. And I think that this is kind of solid. But matter of fact, I'm gonna go back up. I'm gonna bring that down, go back up, bring the exposure up just a little bit. Because right here are the mid tones. This right here is spiking because of these whites in the background. So typically when people are reading histograms, they try to get the spikes in the middle, and when you do that, you'll end up with something like this, and that's not a properly exposed picture. So that's not what you want to do. You want to always pay attention to where your midtones are, and make sure that you have your midtones in the middle. Majority of the midtones are right here, so I'm properly exposed, and I just didn't get the exposure too correct when I actually took the shoot. So I'm just gonna bring all the whites. I'm just gonna bring the whites all the way down. Bring the highlights just down a little bit right here, because actually in our next phase of this edit, I'm gonna actually bring them back, so we'll be all right. Just bear with me. And then I'll bring this up just a little bit. These are like the shadows, so, or the blacks. You can kind of bring them up, and then sometimes it adds a little fade effect to the blacks, which sometimes comes out pretty cool actually. And then I really it's always minor tweaks when it comes to the colors, the individual colors. With me, I barely tweak them. If I'm not making a creative photo to where I'm changing the tone of the picture and trying to give a mood or a vibe, I never like tweak the colors real strong. So I'm gonna take the luminance of her skin tone, and then I'm gonna bring the skin tone up just a little bit because she's a light bright. So I'm gonna bring her skin tones back up just a little bit. Let's put it at 8. And what this does, when you click this tool here, it actually you can hover over whichever area you want to bring up, and whatever colors or whatever colors are associated with that, it will bring those up as well. So this one, as you can see, her skin tone has some orange in it, and it has a little bit of yellow in it. So every time that I click her skin, it'll bring those colors up. So I'm gonna put this back at 8 and 1. Oh, let me get that right. Boom, we got it at 8 and 1. All right. So then the saturation, I hardly touch. I might just, give her skin just a little bit more saturation. She don't need too much. I don't want her looking orange. Always enable profile corrections. That's a tool that's very important that most people might forget sometimes, like me, and just get to editing before they actually make that correction. That's pretty solid right there. See, nothing too much, nothing not too flashy. That's how I edit in Lightroom, just to get the exposure right, just to get the tones, the colors, everything. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you liked the video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and see you guys on the next one.